Hello friends, I am working on a new project today. I enjoy doing some mixed media in my journal now and then, but it tends to cause my journals to literally burst at the seams with all the additional layers that are involved. So I used a thick furniture thread to sew together these pages of watercolor paper to create a journal just for mixed media. And I cut a cereal box to glue on the top and the bottom as covers. I don't want to have a journal that looks like a box of Cheerios though, so I'm going to transform it today. I started by sliding a piece of parchment paper under the cover to protect the underlying pages, and I'm going to use a brayer roller to lay down an initial color using a blue acrylic mixed with some white gesso. The box paper is super shiny and slick, so the gesso even had a hard time sticking, but it'll help give some grit to receive other mediums. I tell you that every time I begin a mixed media piece, whatever idea I have in mind is not what I end up with. So I'm really going into this one with less of agenda and more of a, let's see where this goes attitude. I put a rubber band around the brayer to create more pattern or texture as I roll it, but it really wasn't very effective with this slick surface. I also used a plastic card to kind of scrape the paint around. I had decided I'd start with a blue and gold, yellow gold color scheme and went through my tub of collage supplies to come up with some papers to get me started. Then I used a wet paintbrush to paint around the daisy paper so it's easy to tear out the daisies right where I want them. I always include some pages from my thrift store hymnal and Bible in the base layers. Might as well begin on a firm foundation. I'm gluing everything down with a matte gel medium. It tends to adhere everything without as much warping as some of the other products and glues, gessos, that sort of thing. But before I put too many other products on there, I will need to cover it with some gesso, which again just helps it receive other mediums and paints and whatever else I'm going to use. After gluing down a few things, I added some more blue acrylic, but this time I'm mixing it with a little black gesso for a darker tone. And I let that dry before adding more papers and then more drying time. Next, I'm going to scribble on some yellow tones with the Caran d'Ache crayons, which are water soluble. So afterwards, I'll get a wet paintbrush and move that around a little bit and just trying to create some unity, blend some things in. At this point, I'm not really sure how well that's going to work. And actually, I decide to push it all back with some white gesso, dipping my fingers in water occasionally to thin it out. So hopefully I still have a hint of the bottom layer, that it's still somewhat visible when I'm done. It's at this stage, as usual, it kind of feels like I'm starting over, just whiting everything out. But in the process, I'm getting the impression or an idea to create this white flow down the page with color bordering it or designs bordering it. And then I'll be able to write something through that white area, maybe even a title for my journal. I'm still sticking with the color scheme I started with and went back to the yellow gold crayon to loosely define a border before starting to add more color on the sides. After just a few strips, it felt like it was leaning to an ocean, maybe with swells and a foamy white flow in the middle. And I started tearing thin strips and layering them in different colors of blue, leaving little breaks here and there. Then I tore out a hymnal page and cut thin strips just around the music bars to add some white to many of the swells. And I was so surprised that I never really hit that stage of wanting to throw the whole thing away. I did practically start over with a layer of white gesso, but things are really coming together much sooner than usual for me. Once I had a good coverage on the sides, I put some Bible pages through the middle for a lighter area to write on that would still have some interest, hopefully visible from the previous layers. I looked through my random supply of blues and liked a combination of a Prussian blue acrylic ink and a color mist appropriately called Ocean. I hope to create a little continuity between all the layers by painting thin layers of these two colors over the papers. The coverage was really more than I wanted, so I sprayed some water over it and let some of the color rub off and dab some off just to do what I could to try to lighten it up. I made a final pass over those white areas with some watered down ocean colored mist to tone down those Bible pages. And then I dried everything thoroughly. To bring in some foamy white, I dropped that white high flow acrylic at the top corner of the book and used a wet brush to create a path down the page, and then added more and let it just flow down there, making sure it didn't hit the blue borders. I let the paint sit for a moment, kind of start to dry, and then sprayed it with water to help spread it and create that cloudy effect. And after more drying time, I used the white paint to sprinkle some splashes and create a little movement on the page, and I felt like I was done. The only thing left is a title for my journal, and I really couldn't come up with anything creative, so here we go. Eventually, I'll get to creating something in it, and I look forward to sharing with you. Until then, thank you for watching, and God bless you.